There is something so simple yet so profoundly life-changing when a man or woman begins to truly invite the Holy Spirit into daily living, not as an afterthought, not as a religious duty, but as a real living presence that walks with you from the moment you open your eyes in the morning until you lay your head down at night. So many people pray for breakthrough, for answers, for direction, but they overlook the most precious gift already offered to them, the nearness of the Holy Spirit. And I want you to understand this with all the tenderness I can express. He is not far away. He is not difficult to reach. He is nearer than your own breath. When you begin your day, before the noise of the world rushes in, there is a holy moment of surrender that changes everything. It may be just a whisper, it may be just a simple cry from the heart, but when you say, "Holy Spirit, I need you today. I cannot walk this day without you," something begins to shift on the inside. It is not emotion alone, and it is not imagination. It is relationship, a living communion. And in that communion, strength is born where weakness once ruled. Too many try to face their battles alone. They rely on their understanding, their plans, their intelligence, their experience, and yet they still feel empty. They still feel unrest in the soul. Why? Because the human spirit was never designed to function apart from divine companionship. You were created to be indwelt, guided and filled. And when the Holy Spirit is invited into the ordinary moments of your life, the ordinary becomes sacred. Even in the simplest things, your decisions, your conversations, your work, your waiting, you begin to sense a gentle leading. It is not loud, it does not force, it whispers, it nudges. It brings a quiet awareness that you are not walking alone. And when you begin to recognize that still inner voice, you will find yourself pausing before speaking, pausing before acting, pausing before reacting, pausing before reacting, because you have become sensitive to a presence that is holy. This is where transformation begins. Not in great outward displays, but in those private moments where you choose to acknowledge Him. You may be walking through a busy day, surrounded by responsibilities, and yet inside there is a sacred awareness. Holy Spirit, stay with me in this. And in that simple prayer, peace begins to settle where anxiety once tried to take hold. And let me say this gently to every heart listening, you do not have to earn His presence. You do not have to struggle to qualify for His nearness. He is already willing, He is already reaching. It is we who must become willing to pause, to invite, to acknowledge. That is all. And in that acknowledgement, something beautiful happens. The soul begins to open. There is a difference between living life alone and living life accompanied by divine presence. When you are alone, every burden feels heavier. Every decision feels more confusing. Every trial feels more overwhelming. But when you are conscious of the Holy Spirit, even the heaviest load becomes bearable because you are no longer carrying it by yourself. There is a divine strength working within you, gently lifting, gently guiding, gently sustaining. And this is not reserved for a few chosen individuals. This is the inheritance of every believer who will simply say, "Come, Holy Spirit, I welcome you." It is in that invitation that awareness is awakened. It is in that surrender that sensitivity is restored. And it is in that fellowship that life begins to take on a new dimension, not a life of striving, but a life of walking closely with God Himself. So I encourage you, do not rush past this truth. Do not let it remain as mere information. Begin to practice His presence. Speak to Him in your quiet moments. Acknowledge Him in your decisions. Welcome Him into your thoughts. And you will discover that what once felt empty begins to feel full, and what once felt distant begins to feel near. Because the deepest fulfillment of life is not found in what you achieve, but in who walks with you every step of the way, and He is already here. And once the heart begins to open to the Holy Spirit, there is another truth that must be understood deeply within the soul. You must come to know who He truly is, not as an idea, not as a doctrine alone, but as a living, breathing presence who dwells with you and within you. So many live their entire spiritual journey knowing about Him, but never truly knowing Him. And there is a vast difference between information and relationship. The Holy Spirit is not distant. He is not symbolic. He is not a passing feeling that comes and goes depending on circumstances. He is a divine person, gentle yet powerful, holy yet deeply intimate with the human heart. And when you begin to understand this, something sacred awakens inside you. You realize you are not walking through life with an empty faith. You are walking with a living guide. There are moments when people search for answers in confusion, wondering which direction to take, which decision to make, and they overlook the quiet nearness of the one who has been speaking all along. The Holy Spirit does not compete with noise. He does not force Himself into a crowded, distracted soul. He speaks in stillness. He reveals himself in awareness. And when you begin to slow down on the inside, you begin to recognize that he has been present even when you were not aware of him. To live in his presence means to become sensitive to him. It is like learning a new language of the heart. At first, you may not recognize his leading clearly. You may not fully understand the gentle impressions he places within you. But as you continue to acknowledge him, as you continue to yield your attention to him, your spiritual senses become sharpened. What once felt unclear begins to feel unmistakable. What once felt distant begins to feel intimate. There is a peace that accompanies his presence, and it is unlike anything the world can give. It is not the absence of trouble, but the assurance of companionship in the midst of trouble. When the Holy Spirit is near, even in the middle of chaos, there is an inward stillness that cannot be explained by natural reasoning. It is the soul resting in divine awareness. It is the heart becoming anchored, not in circumstances, but in the reality of God with you. And I want you to understand something very clearly. The Holy Spirit is not only present in moments of prayer or worship. He is with you in the ordinary. He is with you when you are working, when you are waiting, when you are walking through uncertainty, when you are sitting in silence with your thoughts. There is no place you can go where his presence is not available to you. The question is not whether he is near. The question is whether you are aware. Many people live as though God is far away, only to be reached in moments of desperation. But the truth is far more beautiful than that. He is closer than your thoughts. He is nearer than your next breath. And when this truth settles into your spirit, you begin to live differently. You begin to carry yourself with a quiet confidence, not in yourself, but in the one who walks with you. There is also a deep comfort in knowing that the Holy Spirit understands you completely. He is not confused by your struggles. He is not overwhelmed by your weaknesses. He sees what others cannot see. He knows what words cannot express. And in that understanding, he brings help that is perfectly suited for your inner world. He does not condemn, he restores. He does not break the bruised heart further. He gently heals it with divine compassion. And so, to truly live in his presence is to stop striving to reach him and instead begin acknowledging that he is already here. It is to become aware in the middle of your day that you are not alone in your thoughts, not alone in your decisions, not alone in your struggles. It is to walk in a continual awareness that the divine companion of your soul is nearer than you have ever imagined. And when this awareness takes root, fear loses its authority, confusion loses its grip, and loneliness begins to fade away. Because you are no longer living unaware of the one who is always with you. And now there comes a place in every believer's journey where something very deep must happen within the heart. You must learn to surrender control. This is not always easy for the human spirit because there is something within us that wants to hold the reins, to understand everything, to direct every outcome, to secure every step according to our own wisdom. But the Holy Spirit does not come to simply assist your plans. He comes to lead your life. And there is a difference between asking for guidance and truly yielding. Many will pray for direction, but in their hearts they have already decided the outcome they prefer. Yet the Spirit of God does not force his way into a divided heart. He waits for a surrendered one, a heart that says, "Not my will, but yours." And that is where real transformation begins. There is a sacred moment when you realize that your understanding is limited, but his wisdom is not. You may see only today, but he sees tomorrow. You may feel only the pressure of the present, but he sees the full picture from beginning to end. And when that truth settles into your spirit, something begins to loosen inside you. The grip of control slowly begins to release. Surrender is not weakness. It is the highest form of trust. It is the soul saying, "I will not lean on my own understanding when I have access to divine guidance." And yet, so many struggle here because surrender feels like stepping into uncertainty. But what you call uncertainty is often the very place where divine certainty begins to unfold. When you begin to truly trust the Holy Spirit, you will find that he does not lead you in confusion. He leads you in peace. Even when the path is unfamiliar, there is an inner assurance that steadies your heart. You may not see every step ahead, but you will sense a quiet confirmation within that you are being guided. And that inner witness becomes stronger than external noise. There are times when the Holy Spirit will gently redirect your plans. He may close doors you were trying to open. He may delay things you thought should happen immediately. He may shift your direction entirely. And in those moments, the natural mind may struggle, but the surrendered heart will learn to rest. Because you begin to understand that his no is protection, and his wait is preparation, and his yes is perfect timing. And this is where fulfillment begins to take root. Not in getting everything you want, but in trusting the one who knows what you truly need. A life led by the Spirit is not a life free from challenges, but it is a life free from self-driven anxiety. There is a difference between striving in your own strength and resting in divine guidance. One leads to exhaustion, the other leads to peace. You begin to discover that surrender is not a one-time act, but a daily posture of the heart. Each morning becomes an offering. Holy Spirit, I give you this day. Each decision becomes a moment of yielding. Lead me in this choice. Each burden becomes an opportunity. I place this in your hands. And slowly life begins to shift from pressure to peace, from confusion to clarity, from striving to flow. There is also a deep freedom that comes when you stop trying to control outcomes that were never meant to be carried by you. The weight of what if begins to lift. The fear of what next begins to fade. Because when the Holy Spirit is leading, you are not walking blindly, you are walking divinely guided, even when you cannot yet see the full path. And I want you to understand this very gently. Surrender does not remove responsibility, but it removes burden. You still walk, you still choose, you still act, but you no longer walk alone in your reasoning. There is a divine influence shaping your steps, aligning your path, guarding your direction. And when you reach this place of trust, you begin to live with a quiet strength. Not the strength of having all answers, but the strength of knowing who is leading you. And that becomes enough. More than enough. Because the life that is fully yielded is the life that is fully guided, and the life that is fully guided is never lost. And now there is another truth that must be spoken gently, yet clearly into the heart, if you desire to live in the fullness of the Holy Spirit's presence. There must be a willingness to live a life of purity and alignment. Not a perfection that comes from human effort, but a heart that is continually being shaped, cleansed, and brought into agreement with the holiness of God. Because the Holy Spirit does not merely come to comfort you in your current condition, He comes to transform you. He does not simply dwell where everything is already in order. He brings divine order into what is surrendered to Him. And when a heart becomes sensitive to His presence, there is also a growing sensitivity to anything that grieves Him. This is not something heavy or harsh, it is deeply tender. It is the awareness that certain thoughts, attitudes, and choices begin to feel different when the Holy Spirit is near. What once felt unnoticed begins to feel uncomfortable. What once seemed small begins to feel significant. Not because of condemnation, but because love is awakening discernment within you. And so the journey of alignment begins quietly, in the inner life. It is not first about outward change, but inward yielding. It is the place where you begin to say, Holy Spirit, examine my heart, show me anything that is not pleasing to you, lead me into truth, even when it corrects me. And that prayer, though simple, opens the door for deep transformation. There is a cleansing that happens in His presence that no human effort can produce. It is not the result of striving harder, but of yielding deeper. When you stay close to Him, He begins to gently refine your desires. Things that once attracted your attention begin to lose their grip. And things that once felt distant, things of holiness, truth, humility, and love, begin to become precious to you. This is how alignment is formed, not by pressure, but by presence. The closer you walk with Him, the more your life begins to reflect His nature. It is like standing near a light. The closer you are, the more you are illuminated. And in that illumination there is both exposure and healing. Nothing is revealed to shame you, but everything is revealed so that you may be made whole. And I want you to understand something very important. The Holy Spirit is not pushing you away in your weakness. He is drawing you closer so that your weakness can be transformed. But He will not compete with what you choose to hold on to. He waits for surrender. He waits for willingness. He waits for the heart that says, I want to be aligned with you more than I want to remain unchanged. There is a sacred beauty in a life that is being continually purified by the Spirit. It is not a life of fear, but a life of reverence. A life where you begin to value what He values, love what He loves, and turn away from what disrupts fellowship with Him. And in that alignment, something remarkable happens. You begin to experience deeper intimacy with God. Because purity is not just about restriction, it is about connection. It is about removing anything that blocks the flow of communion. It is about a heart becoming a clear vessel, sensitive and open to divine movement. And when that happens, prayer becomes more real, worship becomes more alive, and the awareness of His presence becomes more constant. And yes, there will be moments when correction comes. There will be moments when conviction gently touches the heart. But even in that, there is love. Because the Holy Spirit does not expose to destroy, He exposes to restore. He does not reveal to condemn, He reveals to heal. And so the life that walks in alignment is not a life of striving to appear holy, but a life of allowing holiness to be formed within. It is a daily yielding, a daily sensitivity, a daily willingness to say, "Stay close, Holy Spirit, and let my life reflect you more each day." And when that becomes the desire of the heart, the presence of God no longer feels distant or occasional. It becomes the very atmosphere you live in. And now I want to speak to something that every human heart longs for, whether they can articulate it or not, the need for a peace that does not collapse when life becomes difficult. Because so often, people mistake peace for the absence of problems. But the peace that comes from the Holy Spirit is something far deeper, far stronger, and far more unshakable than anything this world can offer. This peace does not depend on circumstances. It is not fragile. It is not temporary. It is not built on everything going right in your life. It is the quiet assurance of God's presence holding you steady even when everything around you feels uncertain. And when the Holy Spirit begins to fill a life, He brings with Him a stillness that cannot be explained by logic. There are moments when storms rise unexpectedly, situations you did not plan, burdens you did not choose, questions you cannot immediately answer. And in those moments, the natural human reaction is anxiety. The mind races, the heart becomes heavy, the spirit feels unsettled. But when you have learned to live in the awareness of the Holy Spirit, something deeper begins to rise within you that is stronger than fear. It is not denial of the storm. It is not pretending everything is fine. It is a divine inward stability that says, even here, I am not alone. And that awareness changes everything. Because fear thrives where people feel abandoned, but peace grows where the presence of God is recognized. And I want you to see this clearly. Peace is not something you manufacture. It is not something you force yourself to feel. It is the natural result of communion with the Holy Spirit. When He is welcomed, peace begins to settle like a quiet river within the soul. It does not always remove the external situation immediately, but it strengthens the inner man so that the situation no longer dominates you. There is a deep difference between outward calm and inward peace. Outward calm can be disturbed in an instant, but inward peace, the peace that the Holy Spirit gives, remains even when everything external is shaking. It is the anchor of the soul, holding you steady when life tries to pull you in different directions. And many discover, in the midst of their trials, that this peace becomes more real than anything they have ever known. It carries them when their strength is gone. It sustains them when answers are delayed. It comforts them when words fail. It becomes a quiet assurance that God has not abandoned them, even when they cannot yet see the outcome. There is also something beautiful that happens when peace begins to govern the heart. You stop reacting out of panic and begin responding out of trust. You no longer make decisions driven by fear. You begin to pause, to listen inwardly, to sense the gentle guidance of the Holy Spirit even in stressful moments. And in that place, confusion loses its power. You may still walk through difficulty, but you are no longer being controlled by it. You may still face questions, but you are no longer overwhelmed by them. Because there is a presence within you that steadies what life tries to shake. And I want to remind you gently, this peace is not reserved for a select few. It is the inheritance of every heart that will learn to rest in the Holy Spirit. It does not require perfect understanding. It requires trust. It requires awareness. It requires a heart that says, even in this I will not let go of you. And as you continue to walk with Him, you will begin to notice something very profound. The same situations that once stole your sleep begin to lose their authority over your inner life. Not because they are gone, but because you are no longer facing them alone. There is a divine companionship that steadies you from within. And this is the mystery of His peace. It does not always change your surroundings first, but it always changes you first. And when you are changed, even what surrounds you cannot define your spirit anymore. Because the peace of the Holy Spirit is not just comfort in life's calm moments. It is strength in the middle of life's storms. And now we come to something deeply sacred. Something that brings all that has been spoken into its true fulfillment. The realization that the Holy Spirit does not only bring us into His presence for comfort, for guidance, for cleansing, or for peace, but ultimately to lead us into purpose. Because a life that is truly filled with the Holy Spirit is never a life without direction. It is a life illuminated from within, shaped by divine intention, and anchored in something far greater than personal ambition. So many people search for meaning in what they achieve, in what they accumulate, in what they accomplish before others. But there comes a point where even success feels empty if it is disconnected from purpose. Because fulfillment is not found in simply reaching goals. It is found in knowing that your life is aligned with the heart and will of God. And this is where the Holy Spirit becomes not only your comforter, not only your guide, but your divine empowerer for purpose. When the Holy Spirit begins to lead a life, he begins to awaken things within that person that they may not have fully understood about themselves. He begins to stir gifts, impressions, compassion, conviction, and direction. And often these stirrings are subtle at first. A gentle burden for something, a quiet pull towards something meaningful, a deep awareness that your life is meant for more than survival, more than routine, more than personal comfort. And I want you to understand this purpose is not something you manufacture. It is something you discover in the presence of God. It is revealed in relationship, it unfolds in obedience, and it becomes clearer the closer you walk with the Holy Spirit. Because he is the one who knows exactly why you were created, and he delights in revealing that to a surrendered heart. There are moments when he will begin to guide you in ways that stretch you beyond what feels comfortable. He may lead you to speak when you would rather remain silent. He may lead you to step forward when fear tells you to step back. He may open doors that you never expected and close doors you assumed were permanent. And in all of it, he is not confusing you, he is aligning you. Because a spirit-led life is not random, it is intentional. It is beautifully ordered by divine wisdom. Even when it feels like pieces are shifting, heaven is arranging something greater than what you can see in the moment. And what may feel uncertain in the process will one day be recognized as perfect direction. And there is something powerful that happens when a person begins to walk in this kind of purpose. They stop living for approval and begin living for obedience. The opinions of others no longer carry the same weight they once did. The fear of failure begins to lose its grip, because when you are walking in alignment with the Holy Spirit, you begin to understand that fulfillment is not found in being seen by people, but in being faithful to what God has placed within your spirit. And this is where life takes on a different kind of strength. Not the strength of striving, but the strength of knowing you are where you are meant to be. Even in difficulty there is meaning. Even in delay there is preparation. Even in transition there is divine purpose unfolding. And I want you to see this clearly. The Holy Spirit does not lead you into emptiness. He leads you into assignment. He does not fill your life with his presence just for experience. He fills your life so that your life becomes an expression of his will in the earth. And that expression looks different for every person, yet it carries the same source, the Spirit of God working through a yielded vessel. There is a fulfillment that comes when you realize your life is not accidental. You are not wandering without direction. You are not forgotten. You are not without significance. You are being led, shaped, and empowered for something that carries eternal weight. And the closer you walk with the Holy Spirit, the more that purpose becomes not just something you think about, but something you live. And in that place, fulfillment is no longer something you search for in the world around you. It becomes something that flows from within you, because you are walking step by step with the one who designed your life from the very beginning.